Welcome to the United We Scan podcast, the podcast by rural carriers for rural carriers. The views expressed in this podcast do not reflect the views or opinions of the United States Postal Service or the National Rural Letter Carriers Association. We ask that you please consult your assigned union representative for guidance in your local area. Make sure you like this podcast, share with your fellow rural carriers, and subscribe to be notified each time a new episode is uploaded. Please rate this podcast 5 stars where applicable and leave a comment or question for us below. Thank you. Now, here are the hosts of the United We Scan podcast.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 37. Tonight we're going to go over mini mail survey and do some of our listener Q&A. How was your week, James?
Oh, it was pretty good. Gearing up for the mini mail survey. Our postmaster did do the stand-up talk as required and also informed everybody that we would be doing it the exact same way we did it last time, with the sheets handed out to the carriers, and if they choose to count for management, they can do it themselves. Then management will verify the numbers and then put them in the system. If a carrier doesn't want to count, then management counts for them. So it worked out really well the first time, and it seemed to work out really well Friday when I worked. I didn't work Saturday, so I don't know how that went. But it was a pretty good week overall. Mail volumes were fluctuating through the whole week, but it felt good to get back to my route after a week off at National.
I hear you. Bill, how was your week?
Typical Westchester. I mean, carriers bitching, management crying, hot weather, humid, sticky. It felt good to get back in the truck and see my customers and kids and the dogs and, get back into the swing of things. And actually, it's a lot easier than doing the national convention. No 11 o'clock, tutorials with the resolutions or anything, or doing the caucus night, and it's like, God, this job's easier than the convention is.
I agree. Yeah, my typical week. Back to work Monday, and we did some OJT with the newbie that took a month off due to his health. He hopped back in that saddle just like he hadn't been gone for a month.
Dang.
We took the route out Monday. We got, I want to say, probably 3/4 of the way through it, maybe a little bit more. And I looked and it was already 5:30, and I said, all right. I said, how about if we switch seats and I knock this last bit out? He's like, yeah, no problem. So we were done within an hour. But Tuesday, because he didn't have much of the second half before he got sick. Actually, he didn't have anything. So Tuesday, we went ahead and split the route with the regular, did the second half. He did awesome. And then Wednesday, he split the route and did the second half again with the regular, only he was on his own, and he did awesome. And Thursday and Friday, he was on his own. Thursday actually worked out pretty darn good because Amazon didn't show up Thursday morning. So that was to his benefit. Yeah, we paid for it on Friday, but it was actually not too bad. He did really good. He was back. It's a 9.5 hour route. He was back pretty close to evaluation time. Yep. And he'll be back tomorrow, and we'll see how that goes. But yeah, he's told me, you know what? Because I only had to look at the map like once, or didn't have to look at it. He goes, just a couple more times and I'll be golden. I'm like, can we clone him? I just want to clone him, But so that was.
Good sub.
Yeah.
So hard.
Oh, I know. And our regular's final day that's retiring is Thursday the 31st. So then the countdown begins. And yeah, I got another full week this week, had a full week this past week, and we'll see what happens. We're trying to get the borrowed RCA to transfer into our office too, because he does really well. Because when I got back Saturday, after National, and they had split the one route that I was running Saturday, and he did the hard part, the turnaround part of it, the POA. And when I went through there on Saturday, there was not one piece of misdelivered mail that I picked up. So we're trying to talk him into moving north about 30 miles.
Dang.
Well, his route that he's assigned to down there was one of those that dropped to an H route. So he's farming himself out all over to get hours. And he's only been an RCA for 7 months. And he's a new listener, so hi, yeah, I'm talking about you. So yeah, it's going well.
That's the
And
key. That's the key. A lot of us want those subs that are willing to work. We want those subs that are willing to come in and do the work. There's nothing bad about not wanting to work every single day. I'm not complaining about subs getting time off to do the things they need to do. But if a sub's coming in and doing the work and getting the work done and going home every day, I'm happy about that. And if they do take time off, that's okay with me too. But if you're willing to do the work, you get the work done when you're there, I'm happy with you.
yep. Yep, that's and the other one that we have left, he finally mastered that one route that was giving him issues, and he actually starting to like that route more than his primary. Sadly, his primary is the one I'll be taking over. But we'll see what happens. I mean, it's gonna be one of those things. Being the low man on the totem pole, I'm gonna be working every Saturday most of the time, anyways, and they'll be pulling him to run everything else.
More
We'll
money for
see.
you.
Yep. Yeah, especially starting in the middle of the guarantee period with the beginning, so I won't even be able to bank X days till after Christmas. Otherwise, I'd do that.
Yeah. Well,
We'll see.
and on top of that, because you know the route, you can just go with evaluation at the beginning instead of waiting a whole year on hourly and losing a lot of money through the middle of summer.
Correct. Yeah, I do the route. In fact, I'm running the route Tuesday. I haven't ran it in a while since we've had a sub, but I will. I'm running it Tuesday because he needs off, and well, she's burning up what little bit she had left to use up. So we shall see what happens. It'll be kind of nice to run it again, but there's been quite a few changes on that route. She added 20 new boxes this month.
And that won't be
So,
in this evaluation either.
well,
At
no, this
least the
past
volume.
one. Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, because when we updated the mapping, that's how I knew she had added an additional 20 boxes. So, including a CBU. So they're up to 101 CBU units, 101 CBUs, boxes, and 600 and something else regular. We'll see what happens.
So you ready to get into this mini mail survey question and answer section?
Go right ahead. I'll let you start it.
So the very first question we have is one that's on a lot of carriers' minds, and that is the unscanned parcel MOU that came out and only using door miscellaneous. So, in my opinion, from what I've heard from higher up union officials in the area, um, you don't get the credit in the office for the unscanned parcel like you used to on the mail counts because they used to count everything in the mail counts. So if you had an unscanned parcel, it would be counted in the office at that time. So they changed this with the rec stuff because we have the unscanned parcel to use on the route. And you should be using the unscanned parcel when you deliver things to the door or to the mailbox that are of the unscanned parcel type. Now, you're going to have management arguing sizes and things like that. It is not a shoebox size. That is a city carrier term. Spurs or chunks, that's also not a term we use in the rural craft. We have no terms like that. It is either a parcel, a flat, or a letter. Those are the only terms we use. Anything else is city talk or management trying to change things. So the biggest thing is if you're using unscanned parcel, make sure you're being honest about it. Everything about this is honesty, because even though management doesn't get in trouble for falsifying government documents, you can. So if they're harassing you on this, or they're saying it's not an unscanned parcel because of this, this, and this, get with your designated union rep. Make sure you are talking with your union representative assigned to you. It doesn't matter if it's a local, area, ADR, DR, any of them. Talk with them. Your guys' thoughts?
Well, along those lines, there's also a sample grievance out there for benchmarking, which has been established by the post office in regards to dismounts, unscanned parcels, anything that's, getting red flagged because it's benchmarked on a national average. So check with your ADR or your DR to see if they have copies of that. Prove your case in the future. One such case in our office is that a young lady has 110 dismounts on a weekly basis, and they challenged it. Then she went out and showed them, and they're like, "Okay, you're outside the benchmarks." So there is one out there. It should be provided by the NSS, if not by your ADR or your DR, and utilize that because it's already filled out for you with all the applicable articles and violations, so that you can prove your case. But again, it's contingent on your honesty. The management doesn't have to be honest, and the union can be questionable, but you need to be honest, to protect yourself.
Yeah, benchmarking, definitely get a hold of. If you're getting harassed about any scans, definitely reach out to your designated union rep and document. If you got to count the stuff yourself, count it. If you have to prove that it's an unscanned parcel and they're not wanting to pay you 8127 time or miscellaneous to do anything like that, then do it under start load. Anything like that it's ridiculous how management's trying to micromanage above and beyond what was already agreed upon.
And
Yeah,
it's
if
funny.
they
It's funny that my management's trying to micromanage us, and they don't even know what the rules are, let alone have ever carried a route, because most of my supervisors came from the clerks.
Yep.
Yep, mine too.
Yep. And if they're saying you need to come show this to us, tell them I need that in writing, round dated and signed, and contact your designated union rep, because you shouldn't have to turn around and be babysat like that in the first place. And that is a form of harassment from management. So you may have to do it the first time, but you're going to want to contact your designated union rep and file a grievance on it. Anything that they try to punish you on for scanner stuff, have your designated union rep there and make sure you document everything, because they cannot discipline you on scanner data alone. I'll repeat that. They cannot discipline you on scanner data alone. They have to have other evidence besides that, because scanner data can be messed up. Scanner data can be manipulated. It may not be you manipulating it. It may be somebody on another route accidentally put your route in there, and now it's putting their numbers on your route, and it's showing up in their system that this route had all these scans, and it wasn't just your scanner putting them in there.
Or
So,
you had a drop day and they split your route, and the person who took your route out turned around and put your number in there and inadvertently left it there when they went back to their route the next day.
Mm-hmm.
there's all different kinds of ways scanner data can be messed up, and that actually leads right into this next question that actually came from our group, and that is, I've been hearing lately that if you have a bad battery in your scanner, your breadcrumbs or your pings don't ping very often. We had one route that had a bad battery, had no pings for over a week, which could mean coverage factor is bad. Any thoughts on the situation? Batteries can go bad. Scanners can go bad. The biggest issue we're having with these scanners, especially right now, is because of the heat. There are so many circuit boards and wires and things inside of that case that when it heats up, they expand and they push on the screen, which then causes the screen to go nuts. And you've seen the videos online of the scanners going nuts. And there can be errors in that. It can push on the GPS receiver that's inside on one of the circuit boards and cause it to malfunction. There's so many different things that can go wrong when the scanner gets hot. So yes, this is a problem. And if you have a bad battery that's just a bad battery overall, you need to write it up and get management to fix it. They have to either send it in and get it replaced, get new ones brought in. Scanners have to be replaced. We just had one in our office that said the scanner no longer works, ship it to this address, things like that. So scanners mess up. It's technology. It's only as good as the people that built it, and humans are faulty. We all are.
And they run off of cell towers, so if you're not in a cell tower area with limited service, your things aren't going to pick up properly.
Or
Well,
if you're like our post office and lost power for 3 days, and then they send somebody in from National to find out why nothing's been uploaded because your power's been out for 3 days, then it starts actually feeding that data in, if it even feeds it at all. We don't know for sure. But there's also that issue of that as well. It could not be uploading if there's no power, no internet at the office when you put it on the base.
Yep.
yeah, we often have a problem of no internet in our office. Usually around the time I'm asking for reports.
Funny how that works out, doesn't it?
I think
We had a critical scanner failure the other day. Somebody on the city side was going off on their scanner, and next thing you know, it was going in the air over our heads. So I think they have to replace that one.
Ooh, yeah. Don't do that,
it'll be
folks.
fine. Just dust it off and clean it. It'll be fine.
Yeah,
It'll
wipe it on your
work.
pant leg. Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Don't
And
do
that
that,
internet
folks.
and that internet problem, it sounds like your manager heard you coming and walked right past the router and went whoop right over the power cord.
Well, this happens. I guarantee you, at least 4 or 5 times a week. They've actually had to shut the window down at times because there is no internet.
Incredible, isn't it?
Yeah.
Customer service at its best.
100% there. Yep. All right, James, what we got next?
For all our listeners there, how many have you gotten your end of day reports, let alone your PTRs, your end of runs, all that information that you're supposed to be getting every day? How many have actually gotten it? I'd like to see that, because we, second mini mail survey, and management still doesn't know what to do and how to do.
Yeah, pretty much.
If you're on YouTube, give this video a like if you've been getting your end of run reports. If you're at a business that you scan a pickup paper and it says I have to pick up 6 parcels, but I have to do all 6 times, go to the door 6 times, do I use 6 trips to door?
Yes.
You go trip to door, and then you input the number 6.
Yep.
It's the easiest way to do it. All right, the big one. Newspapers dropped at the dock. Are they not being counted in the mini mail count?
We
So
counted ours last round, and as far as I know, every day we get an Alpena News that's dropped off to 2 routes, but it's only for the subscribers. So they have been counting those when it gets to us, because it's actually, they drop off the papers at the office just north of us, And then when our truck makes its way back down after dropping the mail off, he picks them up there and then drops them off to us. And they literally come in like a plastic bag. So
So if
those
you
I
have
know
them,
have been getting
yeah.
counted. And then last year, our Wednesday local paper and our Thursday local papers were individually counted as well. Because those get dropped off at the office south of us by the printer, and then our truck grabs them there and brings them up to us.
So the big thing is on this mini mail survey, the biggest thing that they've been talking about is those drops at your dock. The WSH, the ECR lots, they try to say that they're counted. Check your radar reports if you're getting them, because most likely they are not being counted in the end of run and radar reports. So you're going to want to count them. And if management is not willing to count them into the mini mail survey, make sure you document them on your 4240 during the mini mail survey, and then dispute it at the end of the mini mail survey for district to make the decision and determination on that. Because the biggest thing is you want to get credit for the work that you do. And if they're not being added into these reports, you want to make sure you dispute it to make sure they get added into these reports. What constitutes miscellaneous time?
Answering phone calls, answering questions at the sidebar for customers at the window, your safety service talks, be putting your, well, they're saying stamp stock is the sale to the customer because, you know, that should be your miscellaneous time there. Anytime you have to make extra trips for unexplained reasons because management wants to talk to you and they won't get off their keysters. Okay, bathroom breaks is not miscellaneous. That's extraneous.
If you
What
have
else do
to
we have?
keypad access to dismount
RPM bows.
deliveries, yeah.
Entering gate codes to enter apartment complexes or business parks that you have to go into. If you have to,
Elevator wait time for office buildings. If you need to use the elevator to go to the CBU unit or the office to, with certifieds and packages and whatnot.
if
We
you
got
are constantly delayed by a train, and it's got to be
that one.
consistently.
I was gonna say that one is really a gray area, but yeah, it has to be something that's consistently.
If you live with
And
train tracks
new
on
one.
your route and you stop there frequently, like every other day, you're constantly stopping for a train and it takes 10, 20 minutes for that train to clear that crossing, you definitely want that on miscellaneous time.
And you'll be backed up by your stop times on there, and then they'll see it on your scanner, so they can't dispute it.
Hi, Josh.
We hear you, Josh.
We actually just got district approval for our hardship miscellaneous because they have a gate that they keep closed and we have to open up the gate. It's just like a farm gate type thing, pull the latch and it swings open. And then when we're done, we have to close it. And because I brought that up and it did get approved by district because like they got a gate and it's a hardship. She's like, yeah, they have a bear problem. And so the district's like, oh, you're up north. Yeah, I'm not even going to question that. Go ahead.
It's only a bear problem when they walk around the backyard with nothing on, though.
Oh, yeah. When the two elderly people who can barely get around have a bear problem, yes, they keep their gate closed.
James, the one question you discussed a few minutes ago about the multiple trips for pickup or drop off, is it authorized dismount or not? That makes a difference on which you would put in.
If it's not an authorized dismount location, then and it's just a parcel pickup and it takes you more than one trip to load all the parcels, and yeah, that's a trip to door. If it's an actual authorized dismount location, then yeah, it would be authorized dismount trips.
Right, I just wanted to get the clarification put out there for that situation one way or another.
Yep.
And I'm glad they threw it in there in regards to your tubs and trays now, since we have a centralized location and we're not to keep ours at our case. So make sure people are getting time for that, because as in our office, people are coming over to get tubs and trays, and then they need to come back and get more. Then they have to turn around and they have to bring the tubs and trays back before they leave for the route. And then when they come back from the route, they have to turn around and take the trays and tubs back to the centralized location. And management is having a fit about it, and we have it in writing.
Well, the returning them at the end of the day is all under end of shift duties. But yeah, I can
Right.
see if you're having to retrieve them.
But we're making up the 3 trips just in the morning.
Yeah. Luckily, we can keep ours at our case, so we're good there. But
Well, that's a safety hazard.
when they're up underneath the case, okay.
Well, that's what the janitor told the postmaster. Okay, so that not in the 25 years that I've been there that we've ever had a recorded incident of anybody being injured. But this new janitor, he thinks he is the assistant postmaster. It makes it harder for him to clean under the cases.
Gotcha. Well, if my postmaster would actually get floor cleaner in, then our floors would actually get cleaned. we had an exploding box of Miracle Whip yesterday.
Nice.
Yeah, that's one of the local corner markets out in the middle of nowhere. Orders their Miracle Whip from Amazon, and I don't know how many of the actual bottles made it out of that case, but I know we were cleaning Miracle Whip up off the floor. Yep.
Sounds like fun.
No, not at all.
And people have to be aware of the fact that the batteries are traveling on ground services. We actually had a carrier have a package explode in a tray next to him, and after he changed his pants, got the
Yeah,
package, opened up, and found out it was an exploded battery in there. So you people in the heat belt, watch out. I mean, you don't know what's in those packages that you're carrying, and God help you if you're driving when it goes off.
yeah,
Luckily,
no
he was
kidding.
stopped in a box when it exploded. Wasn't injured, but it
That's good.
scared the bejesus out of him.
Oh, it me too.
I think everybody would be, because you don't expect that sound in your truck when you're in it. You probably think the truck's exploded on its own, just how old they are.
Well, I grew up in North Philly, so that gunshot's familiar to me.
You worry when you don't hear them.
Yeah,
That's
when you start to
true.
worry. We're going to move on from mini mail survey for now.
Whoa. What about question 144? Come on, we have to address that. We have to address that.
I was trying to get away from that one just to be nice.
No, we're not here to be nice. We're here to be informative.
True. Sorry.
Okay.
We planned this. Oh.
Address that.
So the Q&A updates, specifically numbers 113, 135, and 144. MOU says upon receiving credit, nothing about delivering the closed business or schools. What could happen if we chose to keep following the answer on 113 and 135 and the PM says not to? Bill, you're hard pressed on this question. Why don't you take the reins?
I want 144.
That's what I said.
The closed businesses and all. Again, here we are. We're going to get the DPS credit, and then we're going to get the raw mail credit when you pull it out of the DPS. You're no longer going to get the bundle count for the 8 pieces, but everybody's pro and con in regards to its actual value over and above an unscanned parcel. My question on 144 is that on the 25th, it came out that we are now counting our WSH per the National Rural Letter Carrier Association's Rex question and answer page. Yet on 7/28/2023, the post office says they're not recognizing the WSH and they're not going to give us credit for it. Therefore, since we have a conflict of interest and they don't agree with the union, you should be recording all your WSH flats because of the fact that it's a point of contention and should be disputed until they resolve it. The problem of it is why are we having this conflict still?
When you record it, I would say how many pieces and on what date.
Well, if you don't know that to do that, then you're not doing your job because everything has to be verified. That's where I believe there's a sample sheet out there somewhere, James, in regards to what you should be looking for.
The disputes sheet that has what you can dispute on that they recently put on the website.
Yeah, there's that one.
Yeah, that one's got the detailed list of what you can dispute and what you need as proof to dispute it. And that is on the NRLCA website under the rec stuff. And it is a newer one. Dispute process or something another like that. I'm not looking at it directly, so. I think that one would be the best resource. I printed one off and gave it to every route in the office.
Yep. And you want to make sure you follow that. And if you need one, get with your designated union rep to get you one, or one of your fellow carriers that has access to the union website if you are a non-dues paying member, because everybody deserves to have that information.
Yeah, because it was titled as the Rex Mini Mail Survey Worksheet. And it's a good tool to use to document everything.
Yep.
What else do you want to avoid talking about, James?
All right, so we're going to go into something that is the elephant in the room.
Is it going to send us? Is it going to send us down the rabbit hole? Because I don't know how well an elephant is going to fit in a rabbit hole.
Trunk first.
It may a little bit, but this isn't the biggest one. That'll come after this discussion.
Okay.
Because this discussion is, there's been a lot of talk out there on both sides of the fence on the decertify the union movement. And one of the questions we've been posed is, can we discuss the decertify movement, the pros, the cons, and stuff like that? Because what does it mean for us to decertify a union, and what can come of decertifying the union versus staying with the union? So, Kristen, I'm going to go to you first because I want Bill to take the time to think of his thoughts.
collect his words in a professional manner. I got it.
Bullshit.
We love you, Bill. We love you.
I'm done.
Decertifying, I see it as not a good thing. I mean, if you don't have somebody else lined up ready to take the reins, it could be an end all be all to the rural craft. It would be ugly. I mean, we'd be basically at the mercy of the post office. I could see it going into something similar, either hourly with much less pay or in like a contracted carrier position where, the lowest bidder gets the contract. Either way, I don't see it as being a positive thing if you don't have the proper backing ready to walk into it. On that note, I know the one big union that everybody was all hoping for said no from the last update that I saw on the social webs, which doesn't surprise me one bit since we do have a non-compete clause anyways. They won't do that because that's representing competitive people, competitive groups.
On top of that, UPS also has an anti-compete in their contract.
Yes.
So that's another reason why the Teamsters couldn't do it. And I'm with you on that. And it has to be exactly perfect. Everything has to be lined up exactly right. And it still may not work, but
Exactly.
they're more than willing to try. But here's my big caveat on all of this is if you haven't liked the union and you've been a dues paying member and you haven't stepped up and voted and done the things that needs to be done to help this union, how are you going to help the new union when they come in to fix the things that are broken in our system if they are broken?
Yeah.
Because the biggest thing here is you want a new union, but you haven't been involved in this one. And there are a lot of people who are involved in this one. I can tell you, on average, in each state, 10% were involved in this union for this last national convention. 10% on average across the nation of the ballots for delegates were returned. Now, I understand some got their ballots late, some never got their ballots at all, things like that. But that still doesn't account for the only 10% returning the ballots overall.
And
Our
how? Go
last
ahead.
contract, we only had 17% of the ratification ballots returned. 17% voted on whether or not we should approve our last contract that we had. 17% decided the fate of the rural craft. People need to step up. I understand you go, well, it's only one vote, it doesn't change much. But look at how many people have already stepped up for the decertify movement. Those people could be involved in this union, and that number of people could have swayed the vote the other way. They could have changed it. There's a lot of talk back and forth about what could be done to fix this union, but the biggest thing we need to do right now is have everybody to step up, vote for their delegates, get involved with the contract, get involved with your fellow carriers, get them involved. The only way we make this union better overall is from the inside. We participate, we file grievances, we get involved. And I understand people can't make time for meetings. I understand people can't make time or afford to be a delegate. You can still be involved with your vote. You can still research the delegates that are on your state ballot and vote for the ones you feel represent you. You don't have to vote for everybody, every slot that's available for your state. Just vote for the people you feel will vote for your way. That's how you fix this union. Not by getting rid of it, but by fixing it from the inside. Now
Oh
I'll turn
yeah.
to Bill. Bill's turn. Bill's
Why are we
turn.
going to turn?
Bill first.
Go ahead.
'Cause
Go
he's been
ahead.
sitting here.
Go ahead, Josh.
I would say, in conjunction to what they both said, keep in mind the contract that we are currently under is between the NRLCA and the Postal Service. Come May 20th, if we decertify, assuming there's someone lined up, ready to go, we will be without a contract because the NRLCA will no longer be our agent. What will happen between that point and when the new union or agent for the union is able to negotiate terms for a contract? That's all I have on that.
All right, Bill, let her rip.
All right. As far as decertification is concerned, it's a no-go. If, as Josh points out, a new agent steps in, then a new contract has to be approved, and we're caught in limbo, which means if you think the abuse and the hostile work environment that you're subject to now is bad, it's going to get tenfold worse because you'll have nothing protecting you. There'll be no grievance process. There'll be no remanding to the National Labor Board without it going on for 4 years. And by that time, you'll be out of the union and you'll be out of a job too. As James so eloquently says, if you're not involved, you don't have a voice. Your voice is that ballot. In my state particularly, we had 45 ballots qualified to go to the national convention. After that, there was another 27 to 30 people who wanted to go to the national convention. The union members voted for people they know, their names, whether it be a state president, state vice president, secretary treasurer, ADR, DR, what, it doesn't matter. Find people who have like thoughts in regards to how this union should operate and vote them in as delegates because they'll represent your view. They failed to realize this at the national convention because of the fact that they're there for their own interests, to be placed on committees of favor by the national board, by their executive committee people. My personal ballot, I only voted 5 people in. I'm not required to vote for 45. I'm required to fill it out with 1 to 45, but not all 45. So if you only find 5 qualified people you want to represent your state, your voice at the national convention, vote for those. Don't vote for people just because they're in positions of authority or you know their name or whatever. Because folks, they're not representing you. Okay? Find the people who have like thoughts in regards to how this union should be guided in the future, that are aligned with your personal thoughts in regards to how we should be treated, what we should be looking for in a contract, and vote for them. Don't vote just for names. That's how we change our national board.
And you have to vote when you're only getting 15 to 20% of ballots returned. And I'm talking about a state that has over 4,300 members and just over 500 ballots were returned. If that number had been doubled, think about it. If the number of people doubles, even though it still would be less than 50%, still imagine the change that could happen if that additional 500, 600 people voted for people that they felt best represented their ideas and what they want to see for the future of the craft. Not just, oh, yeah, I recognize these names because they're in this position or this position or this position. Or, they've been around forever and I just recognize the name from them being around forever. No. I mean, if that means reaching out to coworkers or trying to go to, my best suggestion would be trying to attend a state booster or a regional conference if you can all swing it, because it's normally those same people that are at boosters and regional conferences. Those are the ones whose names are on the delegate ballot. 9 times out of 10. Those are the ones that are going to everything.
I'm going to put a challenge out there to our listeners. Every single one of you. I want every single one of you to step up and vote for your delegates, both on the state conventions if you get a state delegate ballot or your national ballot. I want both of them voted for. Every single person that's listening to this podcast, I want you to vote. If you're not a dues paying member and you want to help make this union change, become a member. You can get a form off the union website, or you can get it from your designated union rep, or contact one of us. We'll get you the form to get you to become a dues paying member with this union and be able to vote. But I want every single listener out there to vote this next delegate season. I want you to be involved because I want to hear you guys took your voice and voted when it comes time.
Yes, Bill, I'll let you talk about that. Go ahead.
Okay. Since I have permission from the godmother of United We Scan,
Mama Bear, come on now.
Mama Bear, let's talk about retirees attending the national convention. This is a pet peeve of mine because 23 out of my first 35 delegates were retirees. Now, retirees are a big source of information. Some of them. Some of them are there for the vacation. And this is bothering me because of the fact that we have in the state of Pennsylvania several very well-educated, informed, and active retirees that we want to attend. And then there are the ones who are going on to national conventions to meet their old friends. Well, if it wasn't for national conventions or regional like SAC or SWAC or mid states or anything, they wouldn't see these people. So, how good of friends are you? You've had relationship for 20 years, but the only time you see each other are at the conventions where the union's paying for it. I don't need that type of participation. I need people like Wild Bill from Pennsylvania who sits there and gets rooms and puts up the flip charts and gets the questions going and challenges. I need people that are active in our lives, not the ones who are active in their retirement. It's a little harsh, and people say, well, they earned a right. That's right. But as long as you're a retiree and you're taking a position on a national convention as a delegate, you're preventing people from moving up. And let me tell you, that's what suffocates this craft, because of the fact that they sit there and say, well, I can't become a national delegate because I can't get enough votes. Why? Well, the votes are going to the retirees. Thank you for your service. Step aside, let new blood move up and get involved. Otherwise, we're going to stagnate and we're going to die.
Yeah.
And I can't say too much more about this past convention without getting in trouble, but we're on the same path that we've been on for the last decade plus. Nothing's changed except for the players' names.
I have to agree with Bill on this, because I met retirees that knew more about the craft than some of the other people that were actually delegates there. Some of the other people that are actually working their routes, they actually knew more about the job than other delegates. It was amazing to sit there and talk with some of them and understand where they're coming from. And they brought up points of things on resolutions that the creator of the resolution didn't think about and other carriers didn't think about before it came up, and things like that. Like, one of the issues was dealing with EMA, and the biggest question we have is, what about the taxes? Because the biggest issue we had before was the IRS harassing rural carriers for their mileage that they were doing. And the biggest issue there is you're doing so many miles over your evaluated miles that you're being paid for, that we think you're using your car for personal use. And if the resolution were to go through on that and come up with a substantial amount of money for EMA, there's a chance that the IRS could turn around and start doing that again. So, and one of the retirees was one of the ones that brought that idea up. So there are retirees that provide a valuable resource to the conventions. The ones who come there and spend all their time outside of the convention hall, especially during resolutions, and really don't spend too much time sitting in their seat listening and providing input to it, those are the ones that I have the issue with. The ones that aren't willing to step up and participate still when they go to these functions that they were elected to do. It's like a politician who you elect into office and then spends all of his time over in a vacation home or something like that, instead of doing the job, being on the floor and helping to craft laws and vote on laws and things like that. So you have to think of it that way. You are elected to do a job. You should be doing that job. And if you're not willing to do that job, let somebody else have that job.
And James can attest, because we sat next to each other all week. There was times where I was itching and wanted to go up to that mic, but as a non-delegate, I couldn't. There was times where, I wish I could have spoke my mind. I mean, if it was something that was substantial on something, I'm pretty sure he would have went up there and asked to suspend the rules so I could talk. But, I mean, there was there's things that I would have gone up there and done, but I couldn't. It's hard to sit through these as a non-delegate. I will admit that it is difficult to do that. But I wouldn't change it. I would still go year after year, even if I was a non-delegate, just to get the information and see how it goes. And I could still talk to other carriers and try to get an input, their input and views on one way or another. And that, to me, is more important moving forward, is still collecting those ideas, even as a non-delegate, than it to go,
And on top of that, you get the experience for when you are a delegate. If you
I mean,
go as a non-delegate the first time, you get the experience before you go as a delegate the next time.
Yeah, I've been a delegate, so I mean,
I'm
I
just
was,
saying for others.
yeah.
For
Oh
others.
yeah, oh yeah. I mean, if you've never gone, I mean, and you just want the experience because might be a little bit more closer to you, so you kind of want to go, or it's a destination area that you really want to go to, definitely go, even as a non-delegate. I don't, because your word talking to delegates, they could take your consideration into point two as they're voting on resolutions and candidates and whatnot. You have those good delegates that do listen to the non-delegates for their input and will ask questions. I had several, especially quite a few first timers and some non-first timers, some veterans that, have gone for a while that were, asking me, my thoughts on candidates and resolutions and whatnot. You could definitely still make those conversations and make a difference with the voting delegates too.
I know last year I kept having to grab my seat so I wouldn't try and stand up because I was an alternate delegate.
So was Kristen.
Yeah, he could tell. It
So,
was usually the
all right.
facial expressions.
Yep. And then I asked her, "What do you
Oh,
want to say?" And then I'd step up and say it for her sometimes. So
Yeah, it's because either that or we both had the similar views on it anyway, so he just got up there and did it. But yeah, it's, voting for the right delegates, voting for who you feel is going to best represent you is the best thing that you can do if you're not able to be there physically. And we need, I mean, that's what's so disheartening about all of this is all the people that say they want the change, all the people want the change, and they don't understand why we didn't get the change. If you didn't send your ballot in, like I said, 15-20% are getting turned in. That's a very small number compared to how many carriers we have within this union.
mhm.
That number, you have over 100,000 members and barely 20,000 are doing anything. But 50% of the other ones want to bitch and moan about change or not change, and they're not doing anything to help push that change forward. All right,
well,
I'm stepping off the.
it's like the general elections in politics. If you don't vote for the candidate you think represents you, don't complain about it. Especially if you're not registered to vote. That's the worst, and it pertains to this craft. If you don't vote, you don't have a voice. So since that's a silent voice, don't bitch about it. If you're not willing to step up and do something about your paycheck, your future, your rights to be treated with respect and dignity in the workplace, then folks, just shut up because, somebody has to stand up to management. Somebody has to stand up to the union. It's fighting, two different fronts. And I hate saying that because our union should have our back. Be active, be proactive. Before it becomes a situation, step up and put it to bed. Okay.
Here is the mastodon in the room.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh. This
Nice play
this
on
one's gonna be
words.
hairy. Yeah, it's gonna be hairy.
Yeah, I feel a rabbit hole here.
So I did actually hear they're attempting to create a actual mastodon using Asian elephant, but that's genetics and science, and I don't think a lot of people want me to talk about that. What they really want me to talk about is this question that I'm going to read verbatim from one of our question posts that we made for tonight's broadcast. And this one's going to be a tightrope. Word for word, I'd like to hear your take on the current president's flippant remark that carriers were overreacting to the pay cuts from the first round of Rex. Makes my blood boil that this is what we have for so-called leadership. Josh, we'll start with you.
I think it was a poor choice of words that he used. I think the fact that the union leadership, along with postal management, have been pointing their fingers at the carriers is not good. I think the union has tried to some degree, better in some areas than others, to try and put the training out there. Unfortunately, and I hate to say this, to a certain degree, some of it can fall back on the carriers, but for our union leadership to make that a point or contention, I disagree with.
And your thoughts?
Oh, my thoughts. Yeah, I think it felt like a slap in the face to a lot of carriers. I really do. I think it felt like a slap in the face to that 66% that lost. We're not talking about just a handful of routes. We're talking thousands of routes. 66% of the 80,000 rural routes that we have. And those are just numbers I'm pulling off the top of my head. I don't have it right down to the very minuscule number. But 66%. Yes, I understand mail volume has gone down. We've all noticed that in most areas. But parcels have gone up twofold for many. And then we had the COVID stuff and we lost on that. And, we hadn't been counted for 5 years. So yeah, number one, and our standards were lowered. I mean, you're looking at routes, your high miles, low box routes that had that 2 minutes per box. Now it's 1.2. Now you have this drive speed matrix that's absolutely ridiculous for the high miles routes. And that's where a lot of that loss is in those instances. But then you have the coverage factor conflicts between the CVUs and the regular boxes, which they supposedly have fixed. Now we'll see what happens there. But 66% felt slapped in the face by that comment. That's a large number. I get not all the losses were great, but some of them were devastating. And I think the devastating decreases outweigh the minuscule decreases. And it's just to the point of our national board needs to step up and prove themselves to the membership. I had a carrier tell me that today. It may take a difference if they would actually stand up and prove that they're trying to help us. When you have, and that goes all the way down into the NSS system, when you have carriers that are trying to contact, if they don't have a local steward, and even if they do have a local steward who is unfortunately siding with management, It happens. But if you have, offices where carriers are trying to get a hold of their areas and their ADRs and their DRs, and they're getting absolutely no communication back whatsoever, we're failing the membership. And then to have that slap in the face on top of it. No. No. And just, nope.
No. So unfortunately, I have to agree with our panelists here. And some of it really irked me, the way he was stating these things. And you all know I'm big on numbers, and I'm big on finding facts and finding the truth about things. And one of the comments that stuck with me was, some may have lost an hour, some may have lost 2 hours, but it was not everybody lost 10 hours. He is correct on that, but in my calculations that I did just now, carriers that lost 4 or more hours to their evaluation equated to 44% of carriers routes. 44% of routes lost 4 or more hours.
That's huge.
Yes. 22% lost 1 to 3 hours. 6% stayed the same. 14% gained 1 to 3. And 14% gained 4 or more. So you have 28% that gained overall, and everybody else lost. Even the people that had zero change lost on this evaluation. My route stayed the same as its 2018 count value, even though I have 50 more parcels a day. I may have less mail volume, but not by much, according to my postmaster. So I lost in this count, even though my route stayed the same. The carriers that went up, they lost because their route should have gone higher, because they should have had more inputs. So when you are turning around and you are telling your carriers that you are the reason why your route went down, that's bullcrap to me. You need to be telling us that our system is flawed and we're trying to fix it and we're holding management accountable for it. Not sitting there and pointing fingers and blaming all this other stuff. You said the exact same shtick that Ronnie Stutz said at Mid-States about carriers. You said the exact same verbiage. May not have been the exact same sentence, but the context was exactly the same. And that to me is a problem. You just became president. You've been in that office as vice president. You've been around this. You've seen what's going on. Now is your time to step up and lead, not turn around and kick the can down the road from the last president. Show us what you're made of, be a leader, and fix this for the carriers, because us carriers are the ones you answer to. Not management, not the board, the carriers on the ground delivering the mail, not on a route in Sonora, California.
That you've never stepped foot into an office into, and it takes 2 RCAs to run that route because it's so overburdened.
Yeah, we've talked to one of the RCAs that runs your route in Sonora, California. We know what goes on there. All right, Bill, before I go down a rabbit hole I can't come out of, your turn.
Well, I got the excavator out in case I need to make the rabbit hole bigger. Boy, what a disconnect with the union, huh? Yeah, you have no idea what's going on within the craft on the ground, and you turn around and you tell us we're overreacting. I want to take Kristen's 66% and put that into real numbers. That's 52,800 routes went down. Put that number in your mind, ladies and gentlemen. 52,800 routes lost money. Now, of course, the figure quoted was, 2.8 hours. Well, let's take 2.8 hours out of your paycheck and see what you end up with, when you're on table one and you're looking for a part-time job to fill in the holes for that 2.8 hour loss. Let's not talk about the extremes where people have lost 12, 16, and $20,000, have gone from high Ks to substandard routes now. And by the way, do we remember the August magazine where Bridget was talking about, accessing carriers? How convenient that article was posted then, huh? Because now with this new mini mail survey, we're going to have even more problems. We are at different ends as far as James and I are concerned in regards to people going up, and I'm on the minimal end, he's on the average, the upper end. But the fact remains that after the first mini mail survey, things have not been resolved. If not, they've gotten more convoluted. And on my own floor, we have carriers at each other's necks. I mean, they really are at each other's throats and backs. And, it's terrible not to see them unite against management. And it's terrible to see that the top representative our union has makes a cold-hearted, backhanded slap at the craft with no regards whatsoever, because he has no personal experience in the last 15 years.
And I'm sorry. I'm sorry, but I respect my older generation, but when their argument is, well, their significant other or their kids or their in-laws are still working at the office, so that's how they hear about it. I'm gonna call bullshit on this, because
Ding, ding,
number
ding, ding,
one, if your significant other or your kid or your in-law is working in an office and that management is well aware that your ass sits on the national board, it's going to be paradise in that office. And not a single one of those carriers go through what the rest of us have to go through on a daily basis, with the bullying and the micromanaging and just the downright disrespect that we get from our management.
Especially in offices without a local union representative.
Correct.
Oh, like mine.
And mine.
and mine.
And in regards to what you were saying, Bill, if the carriers are at each other's throats, they're not keeping an eye on the ball of what's happening to unify, to improve from both management and the union side of it.
Well, I mean, you're right. Yeah, you're fighting a battle on two fronts, and history will tell you can't fight a battle on two fronts. If you don't unify, you're going to lose.
Well, actually, three fronts if you count the carriers against themselves.
Yeah.
No.
And if you look, if you want real proof that our carriers don't trust management and don't trust the system that you put in front of us to use to evaluate our routes,
actions speak louder than words on all fronts.
Hold on. Wait a minute. That letter he signed, isn't that what Ronnie said that he wanted before he would even consider extending the MOU?
Ronnie said he wrote it, and DeJoy just made some tweaks.
So that means DeJoy doesn't even believe in what was written because it was written by Ronnie.
And on top of that, that shows you Ronnie's affiliation with the post office, because it was almost like DeJoy wrote that. A lot of mumbo jumbo without any specifics. Mm-hmm. There was no teeth behind it.
And yes, folks, we can talk about this because it is dealing with wages, work conditions, or benefits to our jobs. Our union is a benefit of our job, and our leadership needs to understand that we have the right to discuss issues that are affecting our wages, work conditions, and benefits. We're making a concerted effort here to educate our fellow carriers on the union process and on what's going on within the union so that we may make a concerted effort to be a united front with each other. And that's the most important thing here. Letters like this from our national leader divide this union. They put carriers after each other, especially the 33% that gained versus the 66% that lost. That's a big divide right there. And then you have somebody coming up and saying, oh, it's the carrier's fault. Well, now you just divided them against the union. You just turned around and put a wedge between yourself and the carriers. Instantly.
Hold
It doesn't matter what you meant on that. You put the wedge in there. Now the question is, are you going to drive it home, or are you going to turn around and pull it out and try and rebuild what we have?
James, of those 33% that went up, what percentage of that became 47 or 48 that will get cut down to 43 once they figure out how to do it?
Probably almost all of them. Most of them were already up in the K routes already. So if they gain more than 4 hours, like they were 41K, and they gain more than 4 hours, then they're probably motioning for them to be cut. So those guys will be down in the loss category shortly thereafter. So, I mean, it's disheartening to think about this stuff. It's disheartening to think that our carriers are sitting there and seeing something like this. And the biggest thing I could say is kudos on our leadership for pushing for more decertification with that message. They tried to scare them with it, but it instead drove a wedge in between the carriers and the leadership.
And not only did it push that movement forward more, but it also pushed those that were still on the edge of withdrawing their membership to decide that, yeah, I'm going to. And I mean, that there is a devastation in itself too. You know, they think about the devastation on a monetary level. I'm not thinking about it on a monetary level. I'm thinking about it on that level of people having a voice. You know, when you lose that many people and that many voices.
Well, kudos to NASCAR 1987. As I was saying, kudos to NASCAR 1987 being out to become a local steward in their office.
Absolutely.
We recruited one more person than the national board has in years.
Yet they pat themselves on the back for all the ones that have stood up to it. Well, you know what? Go ahead and pat yourselves on the back, but we know where the truth of a lot of those new stewards came from, and you're welcome.
Yep.
That sounds like Moana.
That now makes 18 new stewards since this podcast started. 18 new stewards.
Is that 18 after the 4 they decertified?
That is before the 4 they decertified.
Okay, all right.
And they also decertified an ADR.
Yes.
So maybe somebody can step up and be an ADR wherever that ADR was from that got decertified.
This is where I kind of have to side with Bill with the NSS system and going back to the state stewards having states having some control over that. I hate to say it, but I feel that we should take a page out of the city carrier side with their business agents, which are similar to that of our DRs and above, and have those be elected positions. I think our I think our ADRs and our DRs should be elected by the membership.
not appointed according to who they support on the board?
Correct.
Here, here.
I can't argue with that. I think it should be the same for everybody on the state level. The ones that deal with, especially the ones that deal with step 1 and step 2, should definitely be elected. Step 3s should be on the national level. So that's going to be your director of steward operations and your NROs. So from that point on, those are still elected positions. So I think everybody in the steward system should be elected.
State board members are elected by state members. We're talking about ADRs and DRs.
I'm talking about the steward system.
Yeah, I know.
Everybody involved
I'm
in
replying to a comment in the chat.
Oh, yeah. State board is elected by state members. We just had ours at the state convention.
And this is another case.
Okay. Yeah, by delegate. Yes. I see what they're saying. State board should be voted on by the state membership rather than by the state delegates. I do get that as well. Honestly, I think national should be elected by the membership. There's no reason why we couldn't do a mail-in ballot if we can get people to start voting on other stuff. You know, I really think we, having that and having those things in prior to national convention and then announcing who, but then that also, see, that's the conflict of it, because you may not get somebody that's, they necessarily can't be nominated down if they didn't win a position. I mean, I get that back and forth, but I think what it would do is push these people who are serious about running for these positions to stick with running for these positions if they know that the entire membership has a vote in those positions.
See, and I can understand that position, but I'm going to have to argue the other way on that. Okay. And the reason why is because if our membership was voting for the delegates for the conventions, they were stepping up and actually voting for the delegates and not just getting 1 or 2 from each county for the state, or getting, delegates for national at a 10% average of ballot returns. If we were getting 40, 50, 60% of ballots returned, I think that we would have a higher likelihood of a proper election of individuals. And then you get into your committeemen, where we had to vote 4 times for the committeeman.
Yep, that's normal.
How would that work out on a mail-in ballot system? Oh, you mailed in and this is the vote, so these people dropped out, so we sent you another ballot. I do agree that our membership needs to have a bigger voice, but I think our membership needs to use the tools it has right now to be that bigger voice.
And change the tools that we have now to better tools.
Yes. So, but
and don't you ever disagree with her again.
Yes, sir.
It's okay. I am completely all right with agreeing to disagree on things. That's, I respect each and every one of you's opinions. That's the nice thing about this, is we could all have a different opinion on something, but I'm still going to respect your insight on it.
And vice versa. So, but anyways, the biggest thing that we can take away from this is we need to unite. Every single rural carrier in this country and its territories needs to unite together. We need to stand strong against management. We need to file grievances. If your local steward, your area steward, your ADR, your DR are not getting back with you, you need to go above their heads. Go to your national regional officer, which is your local committeeman, your elected committeeman on the national board. If you don't get a response from them, then you have to go to the director of steward operations. If you don't get a response from her, then you file with the National Labor Relations Board, because that's the next step in that process for failure to represent. But you want to go through the entire process before you get there. Otherwise, the NLRB will just send you back to the union.
Mm-hmm.
The NLRB right now is extremely overloaded with cases, especially on the city side with management falsifying documents. So going to them is a last resort because it could be weeks, it could be months before you would even get a decision from them. But the decision will come and they will give you a fair and honest result as long as the other party responds to them. So, but you want to try and solve it within the union if you can. And if that means going above each person's head to get the result, that's what you need to do. Don't skimp on it. Don't delay on it because you only have 14 days to file a grievance. So work your way right up that chain.
Have all the elephants and mastodons been addressed in this room?
I think so.
think so. Anybody have anything else?
Well, I'm just concerned that they're bringing the mastodon back to, for the woolly mammoth, and they're gonna be basically, raised for their fur. That's just deeply concerning to me.
I'm more worried about the diseases that it might bring back with it. We already had the bat flu,
yeah,
so we might get the mastodon flu.
yeah, and all the stuff that's hidden in the tundras, and what do they call the
The tar
up
pits?
in Russia? The what?
The tar pits?
No, not
The
the
ice?
tar pits. Up,
The
the permafrost. The permafrost.
yes.
They're
I was
worried
gonna say
about all those
ice. Yep.
organisms too. Yeah.
Yeah, because they're talking about they're
So,
going to have to bring back a lot of the fauna that was there in the permafrost when the mastodon was around, so that way it has something to eat. Sounds like a big mess to me, but
Mm-hmm.
they had their time. Leave them be.
now it's time for new to take over.
Yeah. Remember when they
Yeah.
first cloned the sheep?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, that's exciting. They made a sheep look like another sheep. Well, every time I drive by a herd of cows, I say the same thing.
Hmm.
Oh, so you guys ready to wrap this up now?
Yes, it's going on 9 o'clock. We can do that. I was just gonna ask the same thing.
And I've been good so far. So, yes, before I go off, let's cut it short.
I think we all did pretty good on this one tonight. So
Yeah, Josh, you got any final comments tonight, or?
I'm sure I do. It's still hot out there. Keep hydrating. Good luck with the count. I'm sorry, mini mail survey. Even though it's minimal amount of things that they're tracking and counting, every little bit helps. If something that you think should be included and your management won't let you, write down how many pieces, what date it was, and file a dispute. Worst case scenario, no harm, no foul. Best case, you'll get credit for it in the end. Don't get overwhelmed. If you do, step back, take a deep breath, and step back in. Have a good week. See you next time.
the biggest thing that carriers can take away from this is we have to work together. We have to go towards the common goal of ensuring that we hold management accountable to the contract and do it with dignity, fairness, and respect. Because at the end of the day, that is what we all want is dignity, fairness, and respect. And no matter what happens this next week, do it with your head held high and know that you are the best carrier at your job because you have the information to do your job. Good luck with the mini mail survey, everybody. Hopefully it turns into your favor when they bring back the results. And we'll talk to you guys next week.
Go ahead, Bill.
Along the same lines, document, record, dispute. That's how the mini mail survey goes. Document what you have, document what you think is in contention in regards to the WSH, what's a unscanned parcel, whatever. If you don't argue the point, you can't win the point. Dispute it when the mini mail survey is over. Let it run that process, and then grieve it. The best voice that you have in these times is your own, because you're representing your own interests. And by doing so, you're being an example for everybody else in your office to do the same. And you'd be surprised how contagious that becomes. Help out the carriers who have questions, management steps up and interfere. You say, well, we were talking sports. Okay. I mean, yeah, the nitpicking that management's doing now, I'll have to go back to James and say, carrier discretion. Okay. But the thing of it is, if you don't exercise your discretion, you're never going to get credit for it. Do your job the best you can, as honestly as you can. Don't cheat. It makes you a lesser person. It might be advantageous in the short run, but I want everybody to be the best possible person they can be within the guidelines that we're confined by. And remember, you're the most important delivery today. No matter what happens, get home to your loved ones. They're the ones that truly count.
Thank you, guys. I am going to touch on one thing. I know there was a couple statements when we put our feelers out what talk about, and that is getting RCAs to comply with more than just the 6 scans. As an RCA who's going to be going regular here soon, that could be you, and you don't know, that route that you're going to take over could, it could be your primary route. You don't know. It could be your casemate's route. It could be you don't know. So if you're an RCA and like many offices are short staffed and you're running all the routes, yes, you wanna look out for that route. And I've said it time and time again, and I'll continue to say it. Take ownership of each and every route that you run. Treat that route as if it was your very own, that you're assigned to permanently, that you're going full time on. Reach out to your other RCAs and be like, hey guys, this is our paycheck too. These route evaluations is what our pay is based off of. In the off chance you're working under 40 hours. I mean, I rarely do I have a paycheck that doesn't have overtime on it anymore. It's, that's your paycheck too as an RCA. And you should be doing all the additional stuff that you're supposed to be doing. The mini mail survey, when you're covering those routes, you're still counting your inverteds. You're still counting your raw letters. Still pay attention. That way, when you move up into your own route, you don't know what that carrier was or wasn't doing, but when you were running that route as an RCA that you were doing your best for that route to have the best outcome. Honestly. Do it. Honestly. And correctly. And that goes for everybody. RCAs, regulars, if you're, I get it. A lot of you are getting ready to get out, retire, or just fed up with it. But still, think about that person that's going to be taking that route over for you. Are you going to leave them having some astronomical drop that they weren't expecting? Ownership of the route. I can't express that enough. I guess maybe that just comes from being, I'm not going to necessarily say old school, but as a veteran RCA with over 8 years under my belt, looking to go full time, I don't want to see that route drop. If it does, it does. If it doesn't, great. If it goes up, okay, I get it. But I don't want to see any of my routes in my office fail. I do all the scans on every single route that I run, regardless if I'm assigned to that route or not. And technically, being a 5-in-1 with my aux route, I'm not on the matrix, but I still run everything in the office. So RCAs, please, I'm gonna beg you, educate yourselves. Find somebody in your office that may know what's going on. Ask them for help or what you should be doing. And think about it. It is your paycheck as well. And be active. Reach out. My R1 borrowed one, and my new guy, both the newer guys, I'm trying to pull them off to our next local meeting. They want information. I ask, what information do you want? I'll make sure you get it. You got to be active. If you don't like something that's going on right now, where you're thinking, hey, this might work better, get active. Do those resolutions and get them through. Go to a meeting, get to know the people, find out what people have your best interest in mind. That way, when those ballots come out, and it may be your first ballot, you know who you're going to vote for as a delegate. And on that note, I know I'm a little passionate tonight, so I get for having a couple drinks. We'll be back next week. I want everybody to stay safe. I know there's still some pretty nasty heat going on in certain areas. I have not had it at my house. It's been in the high 60s, low 70s all week. I've wore jeans twice this week. And
It's a hurricane coming up the Florida coast here too. Going up into
yes,
Carolina,
those that are in,
Carolinas and Georgia.
those that have been getting severe weather. I know we had some tornadoes downstate in Michigan here this past week. Those that are in hurricane path and tornado alleys and superstorms, guys, stay safe out there. As Bill says, you are the most important delivery of the day. And if the weather's getting too hairy out there, as a carrier, you make that call on safety. If that means getting back to the office and filling out a safety form, a 1767, to protect your behind, you're the one that makes that call for your safety. And I want everybody to stay safe out there, stay hydrated, and we'll see you back next week.